So we just wanted to take an opportunity today to discuss a little bit with where the market's at in the first two quarters or the first half of the year, partially because it's just nice to kind of know where we all stand and how we're doing and how we're measuring up as a company and as individuals and how the market is doing. But maybe even more importantly right now, with this substantial shift in the marketplace, it was probably even more meaningful to have this conversation. So like always, we want it to be interactive. I'm going to try to shoot through these slides fairly quickly. I think what we're going to manage through the chat, and certainly anybody live here that has a thought or wants to say something, certainly we can do that in the midst of it. But then we're going to have a lot of dialogue as we get through this and try to have a conversation amongst ourselves, because of course, the greatest way for us to all get better is to learn from one another. And a lot of people in this room have a lot better ideas than I do. So we want to get through my gobbledygook and get into the good stuff, which is you guys interacting. So I think we're just going to kind of get underway. So the notion of this is to try to say, okay, how has it looked looking backward? So what were the first two quarters like? Where do we stand kind of today? And where are we going? You know, so that's the mindset. So with that, we're just going to go through these slides. Anybody is welcome to say anything at any point. You can put it in the chat if you're online. By the way, are they commenting at all on Zoom? Can everybody hear on Zoom, or how's that working? Are we doing okay? All right, unbelievable. We can't make it through 60 minutes like that. I mean, it's impossible. Especially with me doing anything with technology. Okay, so interestingly enough, this is the Good Life Group. These are you guys, okay? This is it. This is the first 6 months of the year. So a couple of interesting things. Sales volume up 12.18%. Pretty good given the incredible 2021 performance. Interesting to note, sides down 2.2%, okay? So if you combine those two, that means our average price went up 14.4%, right? Is that correct math? So you get a sense of where things are going, where they've been and where they're going. I think likely, just going to admit Lindsay Shaven there. I think likely we're going to see this number dissipate. Okay, so if you look at Realtor.com, one of the evaluation that their economists did, I'm just going to quote it. They can't see the slides. Oh, they can't see the slides. No. Well, that's a problem. Yeah. Can they see them now? How about now? Can they see them? Okay, good.
Yes.
I knew it was too good to be true. So Realtor.com's article, they started the year, their chief economist said, hey, we think because of the slowdown, inflation, interest rates, all the things that we're going to obviously talk about more today, that the environment for price increases relative to 2021 was going to be much more muted. So they had projected 2.9% increase in prices. They have just adjusted their annualization to 6.6. So we don't think this is going to zero. We just don't think it's staying at 12. So my kind of thought is that it will not normalize by the end of the year, because we have all these data, we have all these deals in the ground already. So we only have half the year, but that maybe the second half, I would project that it's going to be more like half of that number. But the issue is, and that's total conjecture, and anybody can make that number up. The interesting thing though is, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I just to make this point, is if you look at annualized data, every single one of the 53 markets, major markets, were down in units in the first half of the year. Every single major market was down in units, and we're no different, right? But interestingly enough, what we're seeing is that in other markets, like Phoenix, for example, inventory is up 35%. So their inventory, so people are like, whoa, like my $400,000 house is, because they had an increase, year-on-year increase last year, 20 to 21 of 27% price appreciation. So in some of those markets, people are taking their money off the table, right? They're like, I don't care, I'll rent, I'll downsize, I'll do whatever. But if I can take $500,000 off the table, I'm going to do it. Interestingly enough, and we'll get into this, and the slide's going to show it, in our market, inventory isn't going up. It just isn't. And so right now, and I'm just going to say it, if nothing else conveys in this conversation, to me, the most important thing that we have to recognize is that inflation, interest rates, consumer confidence, all the things that we think would be our, to our detriment, our Achilles heel, my opinion, in our local market, the greatest problem we have is inventory. We can't sell what's not in the ground. So I would respectfully submit that. That's one person's opinion on sports. Okay, so total revenue, this is adjusted gross commission income, 15.8 on 14.3 last year. 10% increase. And last year was an incredible year. So really, yeah, our units are down slightly. Yeah, our volume is up, but in our AGC is up. Another thing I want to point out, and it's interesting because we're bucking the trend this month in July, which is very interesting. Our average per side was 2.73% for 6 years, like 2.73. I don't know why, but 2.73. We would rut it, we would scrub it, 2.73. So that's buyers and sellers, right? And we have gotten a little bit more skewed. When we were the youngest of the company, right at the beginning, we were very buyer oriented. Well, now some of those agents that we've been fortunate enough to work with have matured and they're getting more listings. So now we've balanced that. If anything, we're a little bit more listing heavy, which is good, right? Particularly in a low inventory market. But what's interesting about it is that we have dropped, even though we have more listings, I think less precipitously than other companies, but we've dropped from 2.73% to 2.7%. And that's just because it's harder to get those. It was harder to get those listings, and you got to do some 5s and 5.5s, and I get that. But we want to talk about maybe some strategies and thoughts about how we can collectively move the needle to try to change that trend line. But that's happened, right? There's just, you get in there, there's 3 people looking at it. The house is going to sell in the day. It's $500,000. Are you going to take 13,000 at 2.6? Or you're going to get 0. And that's the reality of the conversation that I know we're all having with ourselves and we're having with our sellers in the living room. But we have held the line better than most. That's only 0.03 of a percentage point. So I think given the low inventory environment, as much as it's a trend in the wrong direction and we would like to reverse it, it's a testament to the fact that you all have tried to hold the line as best you can, demonstrating your value. But it just hasn't been easy. It's hard. You got 3 people looking at a house to list it, and you're looking at a $13,000 paycheck, or presumably 0, and you're going to trade, are you going to trade the 18 for 0, or are you going to take the 13? And I get it, because I've been there, and we've all been there, right? And it's easy to sit in a room like this and say, you should get 6% every single minute of every single day. And we should strive for that. But we also have to be realists about the opportunities that present themselves. And we have to continue to demonstrate our value so we can do that. Get the highest commission rate, because I think we're worth it. I think everybody in this room and the people on Zoom are worth it. I think our people are worth it. So, but interestingly enough, we had 100 listings closed so far this month that are in our system, 91 buyers. That 2.70 that was used to be 2.73 for the month of July is 2.77. Who knew? I don't know. Will it end there? Who knows? But very interesting. So, and frankly, I don't have everybody's data, right? I can't go into Berkshire and look at their numbers. I can't go into Dodge. I would love it if they'd let me, but they won't. So, but I would argue that we have the highest percentage per side of any company. I just know we do, because we have really great people and we're towing the line. And I'm not criticizing anybody that's had to take one here or there for whatever. I'm not. because I've done it when I was practicing. I did it myself. I mean, you got $1 million house. You want $25,000. You want zero. And sometimes you got to do it. And I get that. But we need to talk about how we can create the most value for the consumer without necessarily working on the commission side, but working on the value add from the standpoint of strategy and ancillary benefits relative to staging and other things that'll provide us an opportunity. Okay, so any thoughts about this? Any thoughts about this? Second quarter, 10.76, first half, 12.18. So our increase was down slightly in the second quarter, predominantly because the units were down slightly in the second quarter, or a little bit more pronounced in the second quarter. Okay, I gotta hurry up because I talk too much. Okay, let's see. Did it go to the next one? Maybe it didn't. Okay, there we go. Okay, interestingly enough, here's June. So the snapshot of June. Now, look, units, yikes, right? 10.54%. But when we look at the board's information, we're going to see that we actually are right in line. So we're not getting killed in regard to that. It's just that's where the market is because we just haven't had the inventory increases. We're going to get to that slide, but we went from 0.7 of a month of inventory, which is, nothing, essentially a few weeks, to 0.8 of a point. So not only do we have buyers that are going to be more concerned because of inflation and interest rates, we still don't have anything to sell them. There was just nowhere to go. It just wasn't. So, but how the hell we limped and clawed and scratched? We did. We had the biggest month we've ever had. I don't know how the hell it happened, but it did. So good for you guys. Yeah, unbelievable. Really good. Now, interestingly enough, to be honest and look at the data sincerely, AGC down 1.68% because of that commission pressure on the listing side that we've discussed. Okay, so can they not? This whole dynamic of this, we're going to figure this out. But okay, so that gives you an indication of what June looked like. Still an incredible month, incredibly blessed, and it looks great. But another problem we do, if you look at buyer controlled agent sides, 11 people that sold a house last year didn't sell a house, didn't sell on the buyer side this year. And on the listing side, 11 did. So we're just doing a fewer deals, and everybody is. And that's, we can candy coat it, or we can be honest about it and have a dialogue of how we're going to try to reverse trend lines and try to outperform the market. And the fact of the matter is, it's just harder to get deals in the ground. It just is, mainly because of inventory. Okay, so this is the board. This is the Omaha board. Now there's Iowa listings in here, as you all know, for the ones that are put on both sides of the river. So it's pretty good snapshot of what's happening in Iowa as well. But this is the aggregation of the board. I will tell you, kind of in a nutshell, as I've analyzed these numbers over the last 6 months as they've kind of come out, interestingly enough, Lincoln has a little bit more inventory and has become used to be, Lincoln was always 1/4 of the business. 75% of the business was done, and whatever you want. And then you kind of get into the, well, what's CAS and but just for the sake of argument, 25% was done in Lincoln. Woods Brothers, Home, now Nebraska Realty's done well down there. There's a few others, EXP, but they were 25%. We were 75%. It's like, it's gone to maybe 28 to 29%, which is really substantial if you think about it. So, and why is that? Is it that the Omaha economy isn't robust? No. Is it that it's inventory? It's inventory. We just don't have any inventory. There's buyers out there. We just don't have the inventory to sell them. So I think it's important to make note of that, because it's significant to what our position is and what our opportunities are. So changing closed properties down 12.3%. If you notice, we were down 10 points. So we outperformed by 20%. Change in median close 13.2%. That is about what we were. I think we were a little bit lower than that. So you can get a sense. That's median, by the way. versus average, which are two different things. So it just gives you an indication of where we're at. Of course, no surprise, it's talking about rising inflation, talking about increased mortgage rates, talking about the Fed raising the interest rate by 0.75 of a basis point, all the things that we already know, right? But at the end of the day, I think our biggest challenge is that in other markets, people are putting inventory on to try to take their money off the table, and have not been as fortunate thus far. Okay, so this is new construction overview. So interesting, another opportunity. New listings, more came on board in 2022 in June than in 21. So I think builders were like, hey, we got to get this inventory in the ground. Bright lights, big city, this is the opportunity. And interestingly enough, pending sales for new construction up 14.7%. Now, also interesting though, 30% more homes available, only half those actually were under contract. Now, some of that might be the stage of construction, and there's some nuance there, but it's very interesting. Closed sales, slightly up. Now, on the year, up 5.6%, but also pending sales, look at how down they were year to date. I'm backtracking a little, but look how down pending sales were year to date, 2022 versus 2021. And that trend got bucked a little bit in June. I think the reason is in 21, I think that number could have been incredibly higher. There just wasn't anything to sell. So there just wasn't anything available. So it kind of gives you an indication of where we're at. Average close price up 20%. I mean, that's pretty substantial. So this is, oh, excuse me. The average close price for new construction in June of 22 was $486,000, and June of 21 was $404,000. Interestingly enough, if you go to year to date, the number is exactly the same as far as the percentage. 461,000 over 300, basically 384,000. Okay, and interesting. Look at the inventory of homes for sale in the new construction category currently in June, 58% over last year, 554 homes versus 349. So I think you can with some discernment, the new construction category is extremely relevant to kind of our aggregated conversation about market condition, maybe more now than ever. Okay, existing homes. So new listings down 8.1% in June of last. I mean, it was, there was nothing before it. I mean, it's challenging, right? I mean, 1808 versus 1661, pending sales down 16.9%. 1429 versus 1188. Closed sales down 13.7%. Days on market, essentially the same, 6 to 5. It looks like a big percentage decrease, but it's a day. So, that could be, putting it in as a note, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah. So median close price, I don't really like median as much as average. So average close price up 11.8%. So 330,000 on 295,000, and it's up 11.2%. for the year. So we haven't trended the other way yet. Now, admittedly, all those deals were probably in the ground in April, so it'll be interesting to see what happens, but it still was trending up. It trended up. Now, a little bit of that seasonality, January and February still is not as going to be as good as, May, June, and July, but still, I mean, that's an interesting point of reference that it was up 0.6% more. So it's not trending the other way yet as of those deals that got in the ground in April and May. So interesting dynamic there. Can they see this? How's the issue with the Zoom deal? Do people see it
No,
or?
people can see the slides fine. I was just saying, when you're referring to the numbers here, I'm sure most people cannot.
Okay,
see them.
okay.
They can't read those numbers.
Okay.
They're little.
They're little, okay,
They're seeing exactly,
yeah. So this is being recorded, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, we'll email it. Yeah. Okay, so this is everything combined. This is new construction and existing combined. So you can get a sense of where everything's at. I'll just, still pending sales, down 15%. New listings, down 5%. So new listings, 1,974 new listings came on in June of 21, 1,877, down 4.9%, down 4.7% for the year. Pending sales, down 15.3%, which is much more pronounced than the annualized 9.6% number. So days on market are exactly the same. Again, average close price up 13.7%, which has been consistent with where we've been for the year. So that normalized a bit from the new construction data being combined with the existing. So you can get a sense, but here's the thing. It does say combined here, we have 1.2 months of inventory versus 0.8. So this is basically 3 weeks, and now it says we have 5 weeks. But I think that number is an unfair number, because a lot of that, if you see that difference in that new construction inventory, a lot of those new construction listings that are online just either have foundations or they have, they're frames. So I don't think that's a real number. And just to give people an idea, we really need 3 or 4 months of inventory to be in equilibrium. So, people say, well, what would make it better? Well, triple to quadruple that would make it better. That's all. That's all we need, right? I'm sure it's coming. It will at some point. Okay. Interestingly enough, realtors, we need to keep our clients in a better place to dispel the myth. Will the U.S. housing market fare better or worse than the 2008 economic recession? 57% said it was going to be worse. Worse. And by the way, that's 101% for those of you keeping score at home. So I don't know how quite that works, but we're going to let that go. Yeah.
Do you know how many people filled this out, Tom? So we can really know,
I don't know what the census is. Realtor.com. I will tell you this, Jamie. Realtor.com. I look at their economist stuff. I think that the chief economist for NAR is good. I think most of these folks are reputable now, but I think the issue is, and we're going to talk about this, so we'll just go to the next slide. Here's the thing. Annual appreciation rates during recession. These are annualized, by the way. So we went back and studied it. So this is 1 year, okay? 1 year snapshot in its particular discipline. 1980, very inflationary, not dissimilar today. Interest rates aren't 19%. We should be thanking our lucky stars, right? Knock on something hard, not 19%. So prices went up 6.1%, even in the midst of that environment. 1981, prices went up 3.5%, even though interest rates were 19%. 91, that recession, prices did dip slightly. 2001, they went up 6.6%. 2008, okay, what's the outlier? 19.7% prices went down in that year versus 7 to 8, right? Why? That recession was caused by housing. This is not none of these other were housing-oriented recessions. That recession, the reason it's so pronounced is because it was caused by housing. Many, many experts are suggesting that they do not think we're going to see a substantial correction in pricing. We're just going to see a slowing, because at the end of the day, inputs for new construction are only going to go up, relatively speaking. Lumber's going to maybe come down. Some things are going to come down, but it's not going to become demonstrably less expensive to build a house. So consequently, there can only be so much parity between those two numbers. In our market's a little different, but like in major markets where they're sprawling, there can't be that much parity, because at the end of the day, then everybody, would buy existing, and then that inventory dries up, and then they have to go to new construction. So, which a lot of people want new construction, don't get me wrong, but they do yin and yang off each other. But I think it's very interesting to note that when you're talking to your clients about what's happening as it relates to this potential recession that we're either in, I mean, by economic standards, we're in, that it wasn't attributable to, this recession is not attributable to housing. And that the reason that recession was so pronounced was because we had such a glut of inventory. And the reason we had that inventory was because we had unqualified buyers with teaser loans that were buying multiple houses that they weren't qualified for. So really, the lack of underwriting is what, within the lending industry, not to pick on lenders, but that's what drove that. And that's what ultimately drove the inventory, because of all the foreclosures. And that's what ultimately drove that down to 19.7%. I mean, arguably, if we didn't have those lending practices, that number's what? Substantially different, way different. I don't even think I think it's maybe similar to this number, so, and that's just an opinion, but really important to tell people, buyers, they're waiting on the sidelines that think they're going to pick up houses for 10% less in a year from now. We just don't see that. That's not what the data is telling us. People that are sitting on the sidelines that say, oh, well, I don't want to pay 6% for a mortgage rate because I want to wait for the mortgage rates to go down, and then the prices are going to go down and I'll get that double benefit. No, their interest rate is going to potentially go down, but they could always refinance. But likely their price is going to go up. Likely their price, maybe not significantly, but 2, 3, 4%. And then what's their rental rate currently? Because I'll guarantee you it's high. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So trends. Practically speaking, for our market, inspections are back, right? People are there stuff in the chat? Is there anything in the chat? Okay. Okay, good. So I'm not necessarily good, but good that we're not ignoring inspections. So a lot of people are asking for inspections now, right? And that wasn't the case for a couple of years. Much smaller demand for inspections. Remember that we have that addendum that we added when they changed the language in the purchase agreement to extend that period and to make it more like a due diligence period. There is in dotloop that document that will adjust the scope of those inspections and the timelines. So you want to be, and I remember John Watson helped me with that. He's sitting in the back. He loves when people draw attention to him. He's right in the back there, and relatively unassuming in his teal shirt for anybody who's interested. So we are going to have somebody come in and talk about this VA assumption. There are going to be more and more opportunities for VA assumption. What's your first step? First step is to call the lender that did the deal. So don't call the lender that they want to work with, because that's not the lender that's going to do it. The lender that's going to do this deal is the lender that's the seller's lender. Okay. So when you get that assumable, it's going to be with them. What are the pitfalls? Well, the amount can't go up, right? So they've got to be able to have the down payment. So it's a slender path because of the price increase, presumably, but it's there, and we need to be cognizant of it. And we are getting somebody to come in and talk about it more. We have seen an incredible trend of buyers not performing right at the 24th hour. Incredible trend. Like, we've probably had 20 of them in the last 3 weeks. We had several cash deals on the day of closing, poof in the night, just didn't show up, just gone. And I think people are scared. I think they're rethinking. I think they have buyer's remorse. I think they bought at what they thought was an unbelievable peak because of the multiple offer environment. Like, we're in 45 days out into this, and people just got scared. So if you do have multiple offers, you need to shore up the language to make sure that your seller is protected. and try to drive as much language around that as possible. For example, language that makes sure that the earnest deposit is non-refundable. There's a box that can be checked. It's a little bit of an unknown fact. You can have financing and not have an offer that is conditional on financing. When you check that box on the side of the financing, you're suggesting that it's conditional on financing. So it does not have, you can allow financing without having an offer conditional on financing. Does that make sense? So you can put, and I would go ahead and put more language in, but you can say earnest deposit to be $10,000. Offer not conditional on financing. In the event the buyer does not close on or before August 15th, due to no fault of the seller, earnest deposit shall be immediately paid to the seller, and this contract can be voidable at the seller's discretion. Okay, so you don't have to accept a financing contingency just because they're getting financing. People don't always think through that piece of it. So we talked about, okay, ARMs. So, adjustable rate mortgages and post the 2008 recession was thought of as taboo, horrible, terrible people. Who would ever offer it? You're terrible for even thinking about it. Those were teaser loans, and they had adjustments that were disproportionate to the rate that was provided at the time of the loan, meaning that they were incrementally going up versus where the market was. They were tied to LIBOR. Most loans today are not tied to LIBOR, and they had factors on that LIBOR differentiation. Doesn't matter. That's in the weeds. Don't need to know that. But the point that is important to remember is statistics show that most people don't even stay in their houses 5 years anymore, particularly upwardly mobile people that are under, let's say, 45. How many times have you had a 30-year-old young couple come in and say, this is our forever house? Yeah, sure it is. Yeah, forever, huh? Okay, we'll see about forever. So the reality is that we think interest rates are going to correct. There's going to be an election in 2024. There's going to be cheap money again, folks. I can tell you, this is not a political statement. They're all equal opportunity suck-ups, right, left, and everything in between. They are going to try to create an interest rate environment that's favorable before that election. And there's going to be some money flowing again. I'm going to tell you, they're going to try to get the inflation under control, and then they're going to juice it again right before the election because they're going to want to get elected. And we've seen it a million times this cycle. So there's also going to be, in my opinion, and it's not gospel, but there's going to be an opportunity for refinance. And if you're, for example, looking at an opportunity today where, let's say, a rate's 6%, let's say it's 6.5. I mean, it's bouncing a lot, but let's say we've seen it as high as 6.5 to 6.75. We've seen it as low lately as 5.25 or 5. So let's say that it's 6.5, and let's say you can buy a 5-1 deal on a $350,000 to $400,000 mortgage at 4.5 or 4.75. In my opinion, depending on circumstance, and everybody has to understand their risk profile, they have to understand what their intentions are with the property. Excuse me. It's irresponsible not to have the conversation, not irresponsible to have it. So I'm not saying that every single buyer should buy. We had a jumbo buyer. She was shopping rate. She was able to get a 30-year fixed in the heat of this thing when rates were about 6% for 4 3/8. And she said, what do you think? And I said, lock it, lock it, lock it. Because I think they're going to be there 10 or 15 years. So it wasn't worth, let's say 50 or 75 basis points on an ARM. It just wasn't worth the risk on that big of a loan. So in that instance, at 4 3/8, I think it was a better decision given their circumstances, to lock it. But these things aren't painted with, you can't paint them with a broad brush, and we can't make the decisions for them. But we do need to present opportunities. We need to be consultative in this regard and get them with the lending professionals that will be consultative as well, where we can work together, because we owe them our knowledge. Doesn't mean we make the decision, doesn't mean that we practice as lenders or lawyers or anything else, but they're entitled to our knowledge. And we have to be able to be communicating that, in my opinion. Talked about 2008, so I'm not going to go into that a lot more. Inflation and interest rates at this time versus, poor borrowers and irresponsible lending. I think we beat that drum. Jumbo loans. This has been the weirdest thing, right? Jumbo loans have been priced more aggressively in today's environment than conforming loans. So if you have a candidate that is trying to get their loan, let's say you have and I understand it's a higher price point, but worth noting. If you have a candidate that's 900,000 or something like that, that's like, oh, I got to get this down to 648 because the lender says that this jumbo loan, in some instances, they're better off just putting their 20, depending on the product, 20 or 25% down and keeping it as a jumbo because the rate has actually been lower. I don't know why. I don't know if it's going to last, but there have been several instances where jumbo loans have been more affordable than traditional ones, conforming loans. And that level is like 648 or something like that. Okay. So where are we at here? So opportunities. The word of the day is inventory. Inventory, inventory, inventory. Everybody in your sphere, I think you should be reaching out to and telling them, giving them a CMA and making sure they understand how much equity they have in their house. Every client we have should know how much equity they have because some people don't even know how much equity they have. And when they recognize how much equity they have, they want to utilize that money differently, right? And sometimes they could pay cash for something. There's a lot of things they could do to create greater cash flow for themselves and enhance their quality of life based on that equity. There's people that have incredible equity positions that have credit card debt, high interest rate loans on cars and personal loans and things of that nature. There are certain circumstances where people didn't refinance during the refinance boom. You may not sell their house today, but it may make more sense for them to refinance currently and go to a 15-year mortgage because they can reap the benefit of utilizing those funds to do something that they need to do with that money that will allow them to be more proficient financially. So every circumstance is different, but we need to be thinking about how we can reach out to anybody in our sphere to create inventory. People that you've sold houses in those neighborhoods, using Pinpoint and different products that we have like that, EDDMs, whatever direct mail piece, talking to them about what the advantages are to their equity position currently, understanding what their intentions are. Maybe they're not ready to sell. Maybe it's the timing isn't right. But by you demonstrating your value and intelligently telling them what their opportunities are, you could create a client with that kind of information. We need to be thinking of all sorts of different ways to get outside the box and develop inventory. This game that we're playing in the next couple of years, in my opinion, is going to be all about driving inventory. Everything is going to be inventory driven. So when we're in these listing appointments, demonstrating, communicating your value, added benefits. So we've talked a lot about commission erosion and previously in the conversation. It's pivotal that we are demonstrating statistically and anecdotally how our certain behavior that we'll participate in will drive their price. Staging that's done correctly is historically given great return for sellers. So I personally believe it's a great strategy to invest in your listings. Pay for some of the staging. Make sure that you do have drone photography when it's appropriate. Maybe you're in the peak of the situation of COVID again, and you have your sellers leave town for a couple of days, and you pay Bill Erickson to do sanitization when they come back. No, I'm serious though. Yeah, I'm just saying there's things that you can do that differentiate you as far as the services that you're providing the seller. That might only cost you 3 or 4 tenths of a percentage point as it relates to your commission, maybe even less, but it gives them the peace of mind to pay you 6%. And your net 5.6 or 5.7 instead of gravitating right down to 5 and having them pay for their own staging. And maybe they weren't willing to invest the $2,000 in staging, but they're going to get $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 more, and you're paying for yourself. You're providing that value. We need to be thinking about ways that we can differentiate ourselves and separate ourselves as professionals. And part of that is investing in our listings. The days of putting the sign in the ground and commoditizing this thing, that's the quickest path to 4% that you could ever see. If we demonstrate our value through professionalism and we're able to sit in these listing appointments and intelligently convey our value, we can reverse the trend line on that, or hold our place in the market and not have to gravitate to 5% immediately. I believe that. Educating despondent buyers, bring them back in the fold. We need to make sure that every buyer that we had that got off the fence because there was 8 offers on every property knows that there's not 8 offers on every property today. What are we doing to go back to our database and encourage those people? What are we doing to get the people that we think should be buyers that need to change their living situation? Are we encouraging them and talking about the market condition today? Are we creating listings by creating buyers? Other opportunities that we need to discuss. Rent versus buying. Everybody should have a graphic in their listing presentation that talks about how rents have increased over the last 24 months. Talking to their tax advisor about the benefits of being able to deduct their interest expense, and they get to deduct up to $10,000. I think the new IRS reg is $10,000 on taxes. So what about those benefits? What about the benefits of modest appreciation? What about the poor buyer that stayed in the apartment at $2,000 over the last 2 years and gets to pay 25% more? They could have bought that house for $300 24 months ago, and now it's $375. And they could have bought it at a 2.5% interest rate. Now it's 6%. So waiting is not always the right answer, even in today's environment. We need to be articulating why that's the case. Iowa market is performing well. So we, as we all know, acreages went crazy during COVID. Pools went crazy during COVID. Not everybody's gone back to their offices, right? That's why we're doing Zoom and we're doing this. This is a great example of why. Some people want to be in the comfort of their own home when they're working. Lots of companies have had to evolve their business model relative to their human capital to accommodate those requests to keep that talent. And people are going into acreages. They're going into more rural communities. Now that's softened a little too. I mean, as all this is softened, but there's opportunities for that. And if we have acreage sellers, you know, it used to be we get an acreage and you'd be like, oh my God, this is okay. So this is a year. This is a year of my life. How many miles am I going to put on that cart? Well, don't worry, because gas is cheap. So you're good. So, but you know, but that was a big deal. Now they last a day. I mean, if you have an acreage seller or somebody that could be, I'd get that CMA out. Do they know how much that property is worth today? Great opportunity. I know it's one-offs and they're not everywhere, but it's a great opportunity. And we talked about Lincoln is outperforming Omaha, and it's a function of inventory. It's just a function of inventory. It's a function of nothing other than inventory. Okay, what time is it? Oh God, I got a shot. We got to hustle. Okay, looking ahead. Okay, there we are in all our glory. Who's the ugly old guy? Reader looks good though. Okay, so we got Leslie looks good. So this is our Elkhorn office, 15,000 square feet, 205th and Veterans Drive. We're really excited about it. We think it's going to be the gold standard in Omaha real estate from the standpoint of functionality of an office, lots of collaboration space, a bar, an area where people can have client parties. We want it to be a very value-added space, and we are very blessed that all of you have done so well and afforded us the opportunity to do this and try to continue to separate ourselves as a company in this market. Smaller but mighty, and so I'm incredibly proud of it, mainly because you guys built it. So thank you for all your hard work that went in to allowing us to really raise the bar, and I think it will differentiate and separate ourselves as we bring clients and we have client events and parties and events and all sorts of different activities. We want people to have, club meetups, groups that you work with, if you want to have your coffee, your coffee group, your synergy groups, outside and inside our organization, we want this space utilized. We want people to come. There is never a rental fee. There's no cost. There's nothing. We always want people to be in this space. So you built it. It's your space, and we can't wait to have you utilize it. So very excited about it. Okay, Good Life Celebration. Those of you, where are we at, Audra? How many do they have to? They're supposed to sign up, right?
Yes, we actually need to get the final number to the venue by this Tuesday. So if you have not RSVP'd, just grab it today, email me, let me know. Also send your t-shirt sizes for you and your guests. But yeah, we have over 200 people attending so far. The more the merrier, so please, yeah, keep it in mind.
Great. And
It's
this,
just gonna be a fun celebration.
yeah, this granary is an unbelievable venue. Really cool. Personics are playing. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I understand people travel. Not everybody can make it, but if you can, we'd love to have you. Yes.
Should I go say it there or should I?
Sure. Come on up, Audra.
Okay, yes.
Audra Kavanaugh, everybody.
Okay.
Okay, for the Good Life celebration, we hope everyone can attend. It's going to be a super fun party. The Personics are playing. It's a really cool new venue. Ours is one of the biggest events they've had there so far, so it's going to be really fun. I have to have the final numbers to the venue by this Tuesday. So if you have not RSVP'd, please do so. And also include your t-shirt size for you and your guests. So you can just email me, you can text me, whatever, just let me know. It's gonna be a great time and we hope as many people can be there, more the merrier. And then Paige is coming up very quickly after that. You will be receiving your invite in the mail in the next couple weeks. It is gonna be the format we've had in the past of the cocktail party the night before. It's gonna be at the Holland Center. There's also going to be a tour of the new mall beforehand, the new Jean Leahy Mall. And then the cocktail party will start at 6. It's actually changing from 6 to 9 because of the tour of the mall. And then, so that's going to be super fun. And there's lots of options. You can bring a +1 this year. There's going to be a lot of different options for tickets. So, and then the next day, September 15th, we'll be at the Scottish Rite and we have amazing speakers. We have a great lineup. So that's going to be a great day. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, well, I just think it's important to say, I want to, on the Good Life celebration, I want to thank Audra and Justine and everybody for their incredibly hard work. It took a lot of time. We
Cassie.
had to pivot. Cassie, thank you.
Mhm.
Our entire team worked hard to get it done. On Page, I want to thank and congratulate and acknowledge Carol Souza and Tim Reeder, who have done an amazing job lining up what will be, I think, one of the strongest lineups of an industry event that Omaha has seen from the standpoint of real estate. So we're extremely excited about that event. And we're gonna, even though our costs are going up, we're gonna bring it to you at the same price. So because we think it's important to get participation. So it's gonna be great. We really want people to attend. And I don't say this in an arrogant way. I just want people to understand we've made a $50,000 investment in this event. So for our company, our size, that's a big deal. So for a lot of people, 50 grand doesn't matter, but to me it matters. We really want people to attend. Also on the Good Life celebration, we've made a substantial investment in that as well. Oh, fair enough. There you go.
Okay, sorry. Page is an event that we created to celebrate each aspect of our values. So this year it focuses on inclusion. So the first night is just kind of a celebration. Sherry Chris, who is the president of Realogy of all of our brands, comes in and does like just a little recap talk the night before at that cocktail party. Other than that, it's just kind of mingling. People from other markets, agents from other markets do come in and attend as well. But so that's just kind of a fun night, a nice night. And then the next day, we have a lot, and the invitation will really outline this, but we have a lot of speakers, all are coming in nationally, who will speak for about half an hour each. and just educate on all different parts of real estate, focusing on inclusion and way to build your business through that.
And we have keynote kind of person that's going to be our speaker, but we also have the chief marketing officer from Better Homes and Gardens is going to be attending, and she's going to be a speaker, and she's going to tell us it used to be, the I used to be innovation versus inclusion. And she's going to talk to us about why the brand evolved the I to be inclusion versus innovation, and the importance of embracing all people, and how those values have been paramount to the brand success and what it means to us culturally and our values. So to answer your question, Ann, which I really appreciate the question, every year we hit a new letter. And so we missed a year because of the COVID, and then we didn't start it. So we're on inclusion. Next year we'll be on growth. And I don't know if we'll flip then and do them all over again or what we'll do, but we'll figure that out. I could be dead by then, but okay. So I guess that's not funny. And it's not that funny in respect to, I kind of forgot about that. Okay, anyway, we'll forget that. Okay, so that's that. Okay, good job. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Sorry. So you'll get 3 CAT credit hours for the rest of from the page.
Yes.
The second day, not at the cocktail party.
We're working on that. Once we figure that out, if we can get C hours for cocktail parties, good recruiting tool. Okay, is that it? Okay, that's all she wrote. All right. Anything, anybody got, what do people have? Let's hear, I want to hear you talk to each other. I rambled too long. Anything in the chat?
We have a couple of questions about the events that are coming up. So the Good Life Celebration, sorry, it's small detail, but speak to the dress code, just really quick.
Oh, well, tuxedos, of course, gowns, no, it's, we want everybody to feel comfortable. It's, the attire is a little different, and I'm glad the question was asked. So the attire for the Good Life Celebration is very casual. Shorts would be fine, jeans would be fine. For ladies, I don't know, not ladies, sundresses, whatever, whatever you want. I guess, is that even a thing? Is that,
There's
yeah.
an outside and an inside. The inside will be air conditioned, obviously. So, but yeah,
The intention of that event is not to be stuffy. So we have no intention of that being stuffy, because the Page event, just to kind of segue into that, the Holland Center is a little more formal. So I was obviously kidding about tuxedos, but business casual. If guys want to throw on a sport coat, that's fine. If a little bit more formal, business casual to a little bit cocktail attire. Again, 3-piece suits, not necessary, but probably shorts are probably not appropriate for that event, just because the venue doesn't really lend itself to that. So that sound reasonable? What are the other questions? Oh, good, Katie, yeah, shocker. Katie hit the Ranch Waters hard last year. So who knew? I mean, that's such a shocker. Yeah. Spoiler alert. Katie's gonna drink Ranch Waters.
this year it's the Good Life Lemonade, which is going to be, it has a twist to it. So,
Oh, Good Life Lemonade. Okay.
Okay, that requires me to unmute myself. That sounds amazing.
With Skull vodka, of course. No.
Does the lemonade have vodka in it?
What
Is this a vodka drink this year?
I'm typing it to her.
No, Katie's saying something. Though I can kind of hear it on the.
Is it a vodka drink this year?
It's vodka, Katie. But,
all right, I'll be there early.
We're gonna get that ranch water for you, sister. Don't worry, it'll be there. We're expecting big things out of you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything back to, we digress. Katie helped us digress. Anything else that anybody's seeing out there right now that you think could be helpful to have a conversation about, that you'd like to have a dialogue amongst one another? Is there anything that's sticking in your craw or that seems relevant to this conversation? Anything at all? Anything on
Tom.
the chat?
Tom, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I'm curious what other people's thoughts are. I have in over, probably a year and a half, haven't seen a single FSBO sign, and I am starting to see them go up in a wide variety of price points. I bet there's like 6 or 8 of them kind of east of 72nd. I'm just curious what people's thoughts are on that. Have they lost listings because sellers want to do FSBO? I haven't really experienced any of that, so I'm just kind of curious what people's thoughts are on that, because it's interesting now that the market's shifting that the FSBOs are back.
Okay. The comment from Raquel Alvers was, it was Raquel, right? I think it was Raquel.
Yeah.
The comment from Raquel Alvers was, through all this boom of the housing market in the last 2 years, she didn't see a pronounced uptick in for sale by owners or FSBOs. What she's seeing anecdotally right now, what she's saying is that she is seeing a substantial uptick in all price categories. And so the thought she was posing, or question is everybody seeing that, or have you seen that, or does it seem different than it was previous to this? Anybody comment on that? Has that been?
I've seen a few more for sale by owners signs than I can see.
Yeah.
But not interaction with clients and the person.
Yeah, but you've seen them just visually, which is what Raquel said. Has anybody gone up with a seller that is either been for sale by owner and switched, or has been combating them thinking about going for sale by owner versus listing? Jody, pardon? You did? Okay, what was your experience, Krista?
And so it was on the market, and they were surprised at the lack of interest, but it was right as we were crossing into the market that we're in. And so I told them that it'll lower it by 10, we sold it right away.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So a thought on that, when something like that happens, don't keep it to yourself. Scream from the rooftops, because we know, and in every listing presentation, by the way, I appreciate the comment, Raquel. Raquel always has very cerebral information to provide. We know through data points, and in my opinion, every single person, even in a proactive way, this is just my opinion, should have in their listing presentation something about the percentage of the increase in price that you get listing with a realtor versus listing with for sale by owner. Because even though somebody, you don't know that you're anticipating, or that's going to be the issue with that, getting that particular list, it might be. They might not be telling you. So I think it's important to identify that. And then again, it comes back to value, investing in their listing, the return you can get on that investment. If you are willing to stage and invest in their house, then you might want to talk about the statistics about how much that gives a return versus the dollar amount spent and what have you. So that's a great point. Raquel, do you want any follow up on that, or?
No, I think it's good. I think it's just something that everybody kind of needs to be aware of. And I completely agree with everything that you've been saying. If you're just going to go in and tell people how much you charge and put a sign in the yard, you might as well start to expect to lose out to other agents, lower commissions and FSBOs. And if you're not giving that value added service, I think that's just something that we kind of all need to keep in the forefront. You're going to have to start working a little harder and proving, what you do does add value. There's an article, and I'll try to find it and send it out. I believe it was NAR talking about the difference, how much more you'll get when you list with a realtor. And I think it's something that, again, that everybody, just take a moment to read it, so that when your clients use that as an objection, at least you've got data to back up what you're trying to prove to them. Because nothing hurts worse when they tell you after they've sold it that they should have hired you, because you don't get to spend that commission check.
Okay, fair point. Anything else? I don't know that we've really set a timeline, but we're at an hour and 6 minutes. I think we kind of thought maybe we would go over an hour, but maybe people don't think that. So anybody certainly that needs to leave is more than welcome to, not that you would have not, because I just didn't say that, but nonetheless, I try to be polite, even though it doesn't come that naturally. So at any rate, so anything else that anybody's seeing that is, by the way, we've been really blessed. I think we had upwards with in here and on, I think we had upwards of 80 some people at our peak, which is really great. That's like, you know, pretty good participation. So hopefully people, you know, we've garnered something from this, but I really think it's so valuable to hear from one another. So anything else that anybody's seeing, please don't be shy. Please say it, because we really need to benefit from one another's knowledge and experience. Anything else that you guys are seeing? Hey, poke holes. I'd love to hear somebody who has a different opinion about something I said, you know, critique something. Tell me something you disagree with. Go ahead.
Okay.
Angie.
And you are welcome now, and who knows where I got this information, but, we went to a little seminar on adjustable rate mortgages last week.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, there's a lot of products, I think 3.25, I think 3.99, 10-year. And someone quoted that the actual average that you live in your home now is 10.4 years.
Interesting.
And, I've always been told it's 7, but now they're saying it's up to 10. So on these 10-year arms, I mean, I just feel like it's kind of a no-brainer. It really, take advantage of it. And you know, look at how it adjusts though. It only adjusts, what, 0.5% every 6 months, and it only go up to like 8.99.
Sure.
And you're still like way ahead of the game. And I think all these buyers are saying, well, my purchasing power is so much lower now because I'm at 6% as opposed to 4%. Well, let's take a look at that. You still got that same purchasing power, just in a different term.
I love that. And I appreciate the comment. You know, one thing I would, yeah.
Real quick, for the people on Zoom, they need you to.
Oh, they need to, okay.
They can't hear her because the microphone's up there.
So-
This is one of the things we gotta make.
So Angie, Jenny Wilkins wants,
Oh,
so Angie politely said, I'm a moron, which we all knew. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't say that. She didn't say that. I'm teasing you. You know that. I love Angie, so I tease her. But no, what Angie said was that let me get this right. She thinks that certain ARM products have merit. She likes the 10-1 versus a 5-1 because there is statistics out there that say that the average homeowner is staying 10.4 years. I think that the truth in our difference lies somewhere in the middle. This is what I would respectfully propose. Baby boomers, they're skewing it because they stay long. So that's not the audience necessarily for this product. So baby boomers, people that reach 60 years old, and I don't have the statistic, but they disproportionately stay longer than younger people. So I should have probably made that distinction, and I don't have the data to support it, so I need to be a little bit careful. But we have more baby boomers, and you know, that are getting into the retirement age and or excuse me, not retirement, but getting into where they might go into assisted living and what have you. And I think that number, once those people start to kind of evolve into assisted living, will somehow change. But I don't disagree that a 5-1. I think it's a fair point and worth noting because I think it's very cerebral and needs to be discussed. 5-1 is not right for everyone. It isn't. And that's your point, is that you have to be particularly careful. And then I don't disagree if the 5-1 is substantially the same from an interest rate environment or cost than a 10-1, then 10-1 it is. And where does that meet in the night? Well, it's very much attributable to you know, their current situation and the interest rate differential. Now, if that 5 to 10 is a quarter point, I would do 10. If it's a point and a quarter, then it gets more towards what their specific situation is. I don't think what you're saying is incorrect, and I'm not patronizing you. I think it's a really good point. I'm glad you brought it up. But I do think that it's very circumstantial, and we have to be sensitive to that. It will be very interesting to see kind of what we call the silver tsunami, kind of as you know, these assisted living facilities. They're all ramping up, right? They're all ramping up for the next 5 to 10 year run, and then it'll be interesting to see how those numbers evolve. But I think what we probably should do to be more intelligent about it, and this is my bad on it, is we need to bifurcate the age groups somewhat, because I think that is going to be very telling from the standpoint of the strategy we should use. But I do appreciate the thought. Yeah. Ann,
I think there are two other reasons though to think about the arm. One is the arms aren't the same arms that were preceding 2008, and they don't have the negative amortization. So that's first thing. That's why people are so scared of them, because they think they're the same product that was there before, so they could end up upside down by taking an arm.
hold on. I want to summarize that for the people on there. So Ann Conway just said that her opinion about arms, one thing that people need to be thinking about with arms that makes them substantially different than the last time prior to 2008 is they're not negatively amortized loans, which makes, they're not adding principal to the loan. Okay, now finish your thought. Excuse me.
The second piece of that is the only reason to go for an arm is not because you're going to be in the house for X number of years. The other reason is almost every economist is predicting that we're going to go into a recession. And then if we do that, then interest rates will then adjust. So it's not necessarily because you're going to move in 5 years or less than 10 years, but it's because most likely, no one has a guarantee, we are going to see a recession and then an interest rate adjustment down, and that's another good time to refinance. So you can take advantage of those lower rates today and yet not go into a negative amortization thing. And the most likely scenario is you're going to move and or get an interest rate adjustment opportunity a few years from now.
Right. So the second piece of what Ann said, which was brilliant, very, very well stated, was that it's not just that you're going to stay in the house less than 5 years or less than 10 years, that we think a recession is relatively imminent. And most economists are sharing that opinion, and that there will likely, prior to those coming to fruition, whether it be 5 or 10, refinance opportunities to lower your rate. So, as they like to say in the old days, you can have your cake and eat it too. So that's an old person thing, but whatever, you can't help it. Julie Erickson.
Well, isn't it too that just like to piggyback on this, something came through and they said our biggest marketing group is really millennials. And so I can't remember what percentage of buyers they really represent. And they're the ones that are going to live in a house probably 7 to 10 years, we're thinking.
Yeah.
And they're the
or
ones
less.
Or less. And they're the ones that are trying, a young family trying to buy a $400,000 house, now a $500,000 house. That difference in those rates throws them out of that purchase.
Yeah.
And this could be a good time for them, right?
Yeah. So Julie Erickson just said that, that the greatest category for growth potential in the real estate business, because they were on the sidelines for so long, as millennials, as we all know, I'll editorialize a bit, but as they all went out, so I'm of course adding my 2 cents, shocker. But as the millennial audience was not as apt to buy quickly because some of the woes of what they saw their parents go through in 2008, it kind of brought them late to the table. That and other factors, that they will likely be going into their first, maybe a trade up on their second house currently. And that if they're a $400,000 buyer and it's a 2%, 1.5% to 2% interest rate fluctuation, it just knocks them out of the market and doesn't afford them that opportunity. So that audience that will be more mobile relative to their next move is maybe what we're targeting more, I think, is trying to summarize what you said. Darla Bankston.
Okay, so it's an assumption, but I see a lot of back on the market. So some got to get their price out because of that interest rate, which is a great time to talk to them, even if they have to talk to a different lender, because not all offer the arms. But smart lenders are getting creative to do that. But I think that might be a time to maybe, get your buyer off of the ledge, and so be able to get them into that.
Yeah. So Darla just said that, kind of echoing this notion that you know, that there's a lot of back on markets. There's a lot of people that have been freaked out by the interest rate environment. Either it makes them not want to go through with the transaction because of it, or it just knocks them out because of it. And that this is another opportunity to just demonstrate that the products that are in the market to our buyers to have a greater opportunity to place them in homes where maybe other agents wouldn't be creative enough to do that. So thank you, Darla. Great thought. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Ann. And thank you, Angie. All great comments. Krista Luther left. So that was terrible. I can't believe she walked out. So Krista's rude. Everybody write that down somewhere. But okay. Anything else? Any other thoughts?
I think it's kind of amazing, all the price reduction.
Right.
You know, but coming on back on market, maybe through the weekend, you know.
Right.
and Bring us a buyer. It's like kind of huge shift, right?
Yeah. So Julie Erickson just commented on the price reductions that we're seeing. You know, maybe this could segue a little bit into a conversation on pricing. I still think that it's really critical to price slightly under the market. Now we have to be careful, right? Because we kind of have this precedent. Used to be, you could say, well, who cares? We'll put 250 on it. We know that it's going to go for 290 or 300. It doesn't matter, but we get that price break at 250. We'll get all that audience and it doesn't really matter. And at the beginning, remember, we didn't want to do that because we're like, oh, well, the appraiser will see 250. And then that got all dispelled because it didn't matter and prices went crazy and what have you. But now the problem is that if we over the market, which has been the case over the last 2 years on price, you're dead. And if you're under market too far and you don't have multiple offers or a lot of, you're leaving money on the table and you're dead. So getting the CMA right is as pivotal right now as it has ever been. But we can't price assuming that we've got 12% increases coming down the pike. We need to be pricing it at the pendings. We need to be pricing at the pendings. We can't be pricing at 10% over the pendings because we're gonna get killed. I think pricing at the pendings is the strategy because we don't want to be too low because we don't want, if we get one offer and we price at 250 and we think it's worth 260 and we get 250, the seller's going to be disappointed. But if we price at 280, we're dead. So we've got to really get that sweet spot. Yeah, it's very hard because we haven't had to do it. Right. Any other thoughts? People's ears bleeding. They're sick of it. Ready to go. Anybody? Nothing? Okay. All right. Well, very appreciative of everybody's time. Thank you for all that were on Zoom. Very, very appreciative of the people that came in live. It's great. We had a great mix. Really cool. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you.